Hi. So you probably know that I like history, and some of you like my historical talk, so how about another one? Today we'll talk about the history of measuring the world. So it's a hobby that is basically as old as mankind. As long as man has had stuff, he had tried to measure it. And it's not as fusion as what you might think, at least originally. At the time, we were more interested in very boring things, such as how much grain we have and how far is the nearest village, that kind of stuff. Of course, when you want to measure, you need units. And the first unit we have is the cubit, which is coming from Egypt. There is a cubit rod on your right that the British acquired very legally, I'm sure. It's about 50 centimeters long, and it's divided in 7 and then in 4. Of course, neighbors also wanted some cubits, but they were not entirely agreed on the actual size, so we started having different units. We'll come back to that. Of course, the Romans come around, and the Romans have a big empire. They try to standardize it, so they introduce things like the foot or the step, and from them called the mille passes, 1,000 paces, which is basically, the number might mean something to you, or it might not. But the thing to remember is that Britain used to be Roman, and when the Roman left, the British kept the Roman passes. Except no serious British gentleman is going to talk Latin. They talk the Queen's English, and of course, the mille passes becomes the mile. But also the same Queen decides that really, why use that number when that number is much better? And the reason is, land taxes depends on the size of the mile because it depends on acres, and so by making a mile longer, you get different taxes. Yay. We have to have a talk about the man and the big myth about measurement of the world. Columbus was trying to, as we all learn in school, and probably wrongly, trying to go find a westward passage to India. And some of us got told that the church was against it because they thought the earth was flat and his plan was heresy. That is not the case. He sucked at math and they knew it because he was self-taught. And so he had learned about degrees of latitude from the Arabs. What he didn't know is that the Arabs had a different mile, which was 25% bigger than the Roman mile. And right off the bat, his measurements was wrong. On top of that, he was also wrong about the size of Eurasia, which means that basically he was about 4 times under the actual distance. And the reason why his funding was refused was people knew that and were like, dude, you're never gonna make it. He just got lucky. But luckily, we have the French, and they saved us all because they introduced the metric system. And Napoleon tried to spread it to Europe along with a few other ideas, which did not really catch on, sadly, and so we still have a world today that is divided in terms of units. Although, you may not know that, but America tried to have the metric system when they first established the conventions. Well, not president, but Mr. Jefferson was really a fan of it. And he tried to ask France for like a bunch of weights to send them, except they got lost, captured by pirates. And so when he came short of weights in Congress, they said, hey, you have no proposal, I guess we're going with the other one. Yes, America is basically using imperial for the same reason some people are still stuck with EBCDIC. Anywho, what about some more modern measurements? Let's propose an exercise. I want to measure something very recent. So, let's say, for example, that you're a non-UK resident and you're trying to get insulin. How long would that take? Can't be that long, right? You go to the pharmacy and they can't do that, so you try to call the NHS, but sadly they don't accept international numbers. So you go to your hotel and then you bounce back between a bunch of different phone standards until you give up. You go to the local hospital, you find a practitioner that actually immediately writes you a paper, and then you go down to try to get your prescription. You also wait a bit for some reason, and then you go home. Total time about 5 hours. So, I'm not a specialist of that, but I do benchmarks and I do profiling, and I'm pretty sure there's some time we could shave out there to get it a bit better. So, what I'm trying to say here is that, think about your app for a second. Do you have metrics? Is it easy for you to get a bunch of numbers? Like, how much a frame takes? How much ping you get? What's the throughput? How fast can you process a request? Is it very easy to enable it? Because I'm gonna make a confession. About half the apps I worked on professionally did not support that. And they all claim to be using C++ for performance though. But if all of that sounds very difficult and scary, I have a solution for you, because tomorrow morning I have a talk about profiling. So meet you there if you want to know more about this. Oh, and furthermore, come on. I think your bill should be destroyed. Thank you very much.